Welcome to Show Me the Money with Michael.derk. Show Me the Money is a podcast that is bringing in industry leaders in the commercial real estate sector that are either on the financing side, the development side, the acquisition side, disposition, brokers, investors, bankers, management companies, everyone that's in and out of the business and all facets of the trade, so that hopefully you can benefit if you're looking to grow your business, start your business, or maybe transition into something else. Welcome to Season 2 of Show Me the Money. I just want to thank all the viewers and all the positive feedback from Season 1, where everyone really gave us some really great insight, and we're super excited about this season. We've got a great list of lineup of people that are going to be on this Season 2, so please stay tuned, and I think it'll be a real treat to watch. In this episode, we have a very special guest, Mr. Joe Hanauer, who is a client of ours who had recently closed a business down in Mission Viejo on a medical office building that was stabilized and still was challenging to get done. Our team really dug deep and executed at a very high level. So Joe is a legend in the business, who's been in the business for a long time, very connected. A lot of people know of him, but don't get to see him in this type of light because he's typically sitting on boards and doing very philanthropic work. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and please stay tuned for many more great episodes for this year. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy. All right, welcome to Season 2 of Show Me the Money with Michael.derk. Our first guest this season is Mr. Joe Hanauer. Joe, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Michael.
Joe Hanauer. Thank you, Joe. Joe Hanauer is chairman of the Move Incorporated Global Advisory Board, operator of Realtor.com. As chairman, he led the sale of the company to News Corp, a principal of Combined Investments, LLC. Mr. Hanauer invests in commercial properties and real estate-related technology companies. He serves on the board and as an advisor for several of these early-stage companies. Mr. Hanauer is former chairman and CEO of Coldwell Bankers Global Residential Businesses and serves on the Policy Advisory Board of Harvard University Joint Center for Housing Studies, where he is former chairman. He is involved in numerous not-for-profits, including Roosevelt University in Chicago, Laguna Playhouse, and Laguna Art Museum. He also has been the mentor for our CEO, Marcus and Millichap, Mr. Hassam Naji, who said he has helped him elevate him in his career to where he is today. So Joe, again, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. And, I just want to jump right into it. We actually just closed a deal a few weeks ago called the La Paz Medical Center down in Mission Viejo. And maybe if we can kind of talk to some of the viewers here and chat about how that process went, and what were your thoughts, Joe, as far as, process, terms, and what you've seen on that deal today getting done versus a deal a few years ago. Maybe if we could start there.
Sure. Well, you wouldn't have asked me if you thought the answer might be negative, right? So it was really, really terrific, Michael. Terrific. Your team did a wonderful, wonderful job.
Thank you.
In the current environment, the quality of the asset means just a lot less to lenders than the borrower, and trying to get as much equity as they can and as many assurances as they can. In other words, it's one not just of charging higher rates, but of trying to minimize risk. And so, which everyone's entitled to do, but in this current environment where there's fewer players in the market competing for loans, the ones that you go with end up to be very tough. And your team was there all the time. A wrinkle would come up here, and instead of sort of putting us out there on our own, talking to the lender and the underwriter, your team would tee things up, and by the time that interaction took place, things moved along very, very smoothly. So it was great, Michael. In fact, so much so that, as you know, we turned around on another asset and came to you maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the closing and said, how about this? So we still hope to do business with you on this one.
Great. Thank you, Joe. We really appreciate that. And, we went to market on that deal through private wealth groups, through CMBS, through banks, through credit unions, all different options we provided to you. And luckily, we were able to get a great fixed rate option with no prepayment penalty that allows you certainty of execution and cash flow and still no prepay. So in the event that rates do come down in the future, you'll have the opportunity to capitalize on that opportunity.
No,
So,
that's exactly right. I mean, we ended up looking at it because the rate, even though the rate was better than anything we saw out there, we really looked at it as an option. As you said, this was a refi, and we thought, gee, instead of paying it off or paying it down, let's go with this option because of the lack of a yield maintenance, prepayment penalty of any kind. We'll watch the market, and hopefully we'll turn around with you, Michael, before too long if rates cooperate and try and do it
right.
again.
Yeah. And even getting a rate in the low to mid sixes on an office building
Absolutely.
today with
Absolutely.
no prepay and a 30-year
Yep.
amortization, I think it's still an excellent option in the event rates don't come down because we obviously
Absolutely.
don't know.
Yep. Yep.
So jumping into our next question here. So as far as investing goes, Joe, over the last year or so, what does that look like for you as far as, are you a net buyer, a net seller? What is your game plan as far as real estate goes in the past, say, 12 to 24 months, since obviously the Fed has gone full bore in raising these interest rates 11 times, and obviously we've seen rates go up from almost zero to 6-7% now. What has that done for you on your investment strategy?
Uh, well, first, your first question. I mean, in terms of being buyers, sellers, we're generally not sellers. There will be a few occasions where something happens where a property might have been bought, particularly for an eventual sale in the relative shorter term. But we're in the market continually looking for opportunities, so that hasn't changed. The opportunities are fewer, but there's still plenty out there. Unlike some people I talk to that say that nothing is priced right. I think they're looking too far in the rearview mirror. Because the fact is that interest rates obviously have gone up, but the cap rates haven't adjusted to the degree that rates have gone up. You talk
Right.
about zero money. I mean, basically, if you look at the 10-year over the last, I guess, 11 or 12 years or so, it's gone from call it the mid twos, to 5. Now it's 4.427 or so.
Right.
But, it's more than doubled. And cap rates haven't adjusted that much except for real problem properties. So the spread, between cap rates and between the 10-year bond still enables deals to be made. Clearly, putting financing on these deals where heavy leverage is needed, they can't work. But for us, where we don't over leverage properties, we can still figure out how to make them work.
Right. And you have assets in well-located markets. You're well-located in excellent A areas, most of your real estate. So I think for you, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but your success and what you lead to is you really focus on, areas that are very insulated, great demographics, great essentials for real estate so that those hold up in times of fluctuation like we've been in versus maybe tertiary markets or tougher assets with a tougher tenant base, whatever that may be. I think that your area where you have invested in, like coastal communities there in Southern California, have done really, really well. And the cap rates haven't been adjusted there as much as maybe some other areas.
No, that's exactly right, Michael. I mean, in our case, it's not just coastal. I mean, there's other places where we invest, and there's the press has been so negative on real estate, and it throws all asset classes into the same bucket, and that just isn't reality. That's not what's been happening. There's submarkets where there's not an overabundance of supply, and when you look around, there's no place where a large amount of new supply might be based on the asset, on the type of property. And so, you can see situations where even, with retail and with office, where, office that has long-term tenants, credit tenants, and where you don't see any place where new supply of any size is going to come, it's going to be fine. And you'll get a better return today than you would have gotten, 2 years ago.
Yes.
Same is true with retail.
You're exactly right. And I think a lot of people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater on these office products. And I think there's huge opportunities, obviously, you've seen and you've capitalized on in a lot of these areas. And we're actively working on financing office buildings all over the country, where a lot of people are turning their nose up there. A lot of lenders just redline them and do not touch them anymore. But we are helping clients all over the place. And I think it's a great place to be looking at for the right deal, right location, obviously with the right experience. So I completely agree with you. Moving on to the next question, as far as interest rates, Joe, given your experience over many years of being in the business and seeing the economic highs and lows of what's going on and the Federal Reserve of what they're trying to do to curb inflation, whether it works or not, obviously we'll see down the road. But where do you see interest rates in the next year? What do you foresee happening through the election and toward the middle part of, say, 2025, when everyone has been touting over the last year and a half, survive till 25? I always wonder what that exactly means, because I don't know what specifically is going to happen in 25 where some light switch is just going to go off and change. So can you maybe touch on that?
Right. Well, yeah. And then the years change. I was at a Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies meeting 2 weeks ago. And for the multifamily developers that are part of that group, a year ago, they were saying survive till 25 because they looked at the pipeline of products that are in the market and knew all the supply that was going to be coming on. Well, now they've changed that to 26. I'm not sure what rhymes with 26, but so those dates change. But
right.
The drivers of increasing interest rates vary based on different market cycles. Clearly, the Fed obviously has a mandate of inflation and controlling inflation and full employment. So, but the things that impact full employment and inflation can change based on a number of different variables. Yes. If we look at the recent contributors to inflation, it really has been two major factors. One has been the supply chain shortages, and the other was consumer demand hyped by savings through the various government programs that people had, and the fact that they were staying at home and they had no place to spend money. So you take those two together, and they're the big factors. I mean, there's other factors, oil and more recently salary increases because of deteriorated purchasing power because of inflation. But yes, again, the biggest factors have been supply chain and the amount of money that consumers had to spend. Both of those are coming into better balance. In terms of supply chain, shipping capacity, there's actually shortages of demand, so prices for shipping are going down, and ships are sailing with less than full cargoes. The ports are cleared. You remember we were reading about all of the inventory that was being stacked up at ports. That's not happening any longer.
Right.
And then the consumer's been spending, and the consumer's been borrowing. And so the consumer, especially the lower income consumer, lower middle as well, their purchasing power is diminished. And along with the diminished purchasing power are the interest rates on their loans and on their credit card bills, which are eating into their discretionary income. So demand is being and will be reduced over the next several months. And so inflation is softening. Now, how far will it come down? Who knows? But it is certainly softening. And so where the debate for a while was, is the next move up or down? But now there's a consensus and it's down. I hope, consensus are often wrong, but I think this one's right.
Yes.
And my own guess, I mean, it's so hard to forecast, but my own guess is that there will be a down movement of one or two times this year. It will become a more favorable borrowing environment.
Well, that's great to hear. We obviously hope so because the jolt that we've experienced in the market and what we've been dealing with our clients has really, shifted the market. It's almost like I've used this analogy before, driving in first gear and putting in sixth gear, then back into first gear again. And obviously it doesn't work and the transmission falls on the street. So with the negative leverage that, most deals we look at today on average are between 40 to 50% leverage. All the interest rates are higher than the cap rates. And depending where the future growth is of these NOIs, it's just very hard to make deals work. So, either prices fall or rates fall. Something has to give to get this market back to some kind of stabilized basis. Because right now, in all essence, we're just seeing a market there's a pretty heavy disconnect there. So hopefully we can get the prices to soften up. The rates to soften up, and hopefully not too much on the prices. But as far as evaluating opportunities for real estate opportunities or for technology companies, what do you do? You kind of touched on the real estate portion of it. So what about the technology companies, Joe? How are you looking at those, and how are you leveraging them to be successful in your everyday business of real estate?
Yeah, the leveraging. Well, first of all, in terms of the technology companies, what I do is I do invest in early stage real estate related companies. And real estate related for the obvious reason that I think I have a sense of the kinds of needs that exist with consumers and with property owners, lenders, people that want to serve the real estate industry, the kind of needs that they have, and therefore what kinds of technology products might be able to help those organizations, those kinds of companies. That's what I tend to focus on. So in doing so, I don't need to know a lot about the technology because I'm not a technologist. What I need to do is understand the problem that they're trying to address.
Sure.
And if I can get a sense that the technology works, and by that I mean that it's valid, that their concept is valid, it's not just a vaporware, but it's something that actually works. And I'll look to the credibility of the person themselves, himself or the team that have been put together, the track record they have. Are they believable, and can in fact the product work? So, I start with trying to understand, what they solve and what they're trying to solve, and then the management team themselves, if they're credible people.
Sure.
The next thing is a hard one to define, but I want to make sure it's not a sort of a one-trick pony. In other words, it's not sort of a product either looking for a market, or it's not a product that really isn't applicable for multiple solutions, because things change when you're addressing a market with technology. I mean, one thing that happens is that somebody else comes into the market and has something better than you have. Or companies that are already in place see what you're doing, and so they decide, hey, we better move into that arena before these people get traction. So it becomes important for a team that's been assembled that has technology that they think is going to work for a given need, that it could be transferred to some other need over time. And the very successful companies are ones that pivot and they sort of evolve into satisfying other kinds of needs. There's different examples. I mean, one of the examples is Uber. We think of it as a ride-sharing company,
Right.
but they also obviously deliver food now.
Yes.
It's a big part of their business. And if you define their business, it isn't necessarily sort of ride sharing, it's the technology of making it convenient for people or things to get from one place to another.
Right.
And then, even within that, there's other ways to expand revenue. I was reading the other day that one of the markets that they're looking at is the advertising market, because people are held captive. You've seen it in taxi cabs, obviously, in New
Right.
York and Chicago and other
Yes.
places. So they're looking at how to go ahead and more innovatively have advertising in their, in their cars.
The vehicles. Yeah.
One projection that I read was if they get sort of 2% of the market, there's about $5 billion advertising opportunity. So that's an example of expansion. There's a couple of other examples. That there's a company that I invested in and was on the board of, and we ended up doing a SPAC. I left the company shortly after the SPAC. Called Porch. And they're traded now, and their stock was up, and now it's down quite a bit. But this was a company I invested in because I believed in the management team, and they were trying to address the thing that so many companies have tried to address. Angie's List,
Yes.
Home Advisor, and that deals with providing good service people that are needed for a home. And I like the management team a lot. They had a good track record. I like the space because I've invested in it before, and I always felt there need to be solutions. And I thought maybe these guys can unlock it. Well, they didn't unlock it, but they were smart enough. And in trying to unlock it, they happened to buy a company that provided software for home warranty companies, and they bought this company. And it provided software for about, I think, 27% of the home warranty companies, home warranty inspectors.
Sure.
And they did that solely to get leads for their main business, the main business being helping people with problems around the house.
Sure.
Well, the reality is having consistent service still is elusive, but getting those leads and having that captive market has enabled the company to leverage those leads into insurance, into other kinds of financial services, And it's an example of how companies that have certain kinds of concepts can go ahead and use those and apply them to other needs and other purposes. So
Right.
that's what I tend to look at.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's smart, and that's obviously the most successful companies we've seen over history has been companies that can pivot and be very diverse, not just in
Right.
the sector they're in, but can be applicable. And obviously, that's what you're speaking to. So that makes a lot of sense. Moving into Joe, as far as younger people, we have people from all different ages, all walks of life, everywhere, looking at these shows, and I'm getting a lot of good press and feedback about the show we put together because of the individuals like yourself. Again, thank you for coming on the show. But what advice would you give? You've had such a successful career. You've done everything and starting companies and invested in real estate, and you've done everything very well. If you have someone in the commercial real estate industry, say, from 1 month in the business to say 5 years, what would you tell these individuals today about, what to do to be successful and what to stand out to be different?
I think, the first is to find a mentor. And I've run across a lot of different people over time that approach this differently. Some that simply say, hey, is there any chance that you could be my mentor? And then some others that simply continue talking to you, and then later on you find out that they considered you their mentor. So the first is to find the right mentor. And by that I'm talking not solely about some high roller that's knocking the lights out,
Right.
but somebody that you can respect, and somebody that'll be able to take the time to work with you, that cares for you, and that will have the patience to share their experiences with you, and has the kind of ethics that you have.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest one. And the income you receive during that period, if it's 15 or 20% less than you might be able to get someplace else, with meteoric opportunities, it becomes very much worth it, because in the longer run, you'll obviously learn a lot of lessons that this person paid the price for over a period of time. So I'd worry less about what you earn and worry more about, or think more about, what you can learn.
Right.
I think the other thing would be to just grab all of the related education that you can during that early period. I was very lucky. I had a mentor who was about 15 years older than I was, and he was head of a company that I joined to handle advertising and marketing for. It was a real estate company, and I was doing their advertising and PR marketing. And wherever there were courses, all the courses that all of us, you, Michael, as well, that we attend now, when you were young and first in the business, you didn't know that they were there.
Right.
And so, I would just look at everything available and just immerse yourself in that kind of education, because obviously you'll learn a lot, but you'll also network with other people. Your perspective of the industry is going to be redefined.
Yes.
And it's a time sort of to mold just who you are in that business.
Right.
Instead of what happens with a lot of people, they're just blocking and tackling, and they're doing the same thing every day. And as they become a little more successful and have a little money to spend for going to ICSE and going to courses and things like that, they do it then. Well, the time to do these things, if you're able to, is in the early stages of getting in the business. It'll help shape where you want to go, what you want to do, and the circle of people that over a long period of time will become your network. So those
are some of the best words I've ever heard. And I went to UCLA Extension while I worked at my first company out of college was Fremont Investment Alone. I worked as an analyst, and at night, after working full time, I would go to school full time at night and took the UCLA Extension courses. And I still do business with people I met there, 25, 26 years ago. So very thankful for those opportunities. And I can't stress that enough for, younger people in the business, or if you're just starting in the business, whatever it may be. I think it's important to take advantage of those opportunities. Joe, there's people have a lot of highs and lows in their career. And again, my favorite part of the show, and we talk about this every episode, but maybe if you could touch on what is your high of your career, and more importantly, maybe a low point of your career and how you got back up from that point. Because a lot of people, again, watching the show just see a very successful individual like yourself and just say, oh, it just happens like a snap of a finger. But we all know that's not the case. We all fall down in life or in a career, and it's how we get back up that really, molds and shows who we are. So maybe if you can touch on those a little bit, please.
Yeah, on the high point, it's hard to say. I've been lucky and had, unlike a lot of friends of mine that have been doing the same thing, for much of their careers, I've done a lot of different things by circumstance. It ends up that, I got involved, the company where I had this mentor, we ended up eventually owning the company together, sold it to Coldwell Banker, and became CEO of Coldwell. And then did that for probably 10 or 11 or 12 years, and then started doing more entrepreneurial things again. So I've been involved in a lot of different kind of businesses. And I would say there's no one real high point, but in terms of satisfaction, one is the property that I bought in Hillsboro, Oregon, 189 acres during the RTC period. Didn't buy it from the RTC, but anyway, when nobody was buying developable land. And this was an overnight success, meaning I think I owned it for 16 years before we finally got it entitled and sold it. But it was really meaningful because I really was involved in creating a community. About 1,500 homes were built on this one, but I brought together another property owner, that ended up building 4,500 homes. And together, we really created a community, worked very closely with the city, made some very long-term friends at the city that I still get engaged with, even though we do no business, there any longer, and created basically a place for 20,000 people, will live.
Wow.
And
That's great.
and just the satisfaction of making that happen, and it probably would have happened, but it wouldn't have happened as well as it did if I hadn't gotten engaged, bringing the parties together, things like that. So that probably was most satisfying. But certainly building Coldwell, bailing out Grubb and Ellis during its financial problems in the 90s. I mean, these were satisfying things.
Right. Well, excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. We really appreciate it, and your words of wisdom mean a lot for all the viewers, for sure. Joe, you're involved in numerous nonprofits. Can you share a little bit about your connection and involvement with, say, the Laguna Playhouse or Laguna Art Museum, and see how that plays into your everyday life and maybe how you got involved in that?
Yeah. So I've always, gotten involved in nonprofits. Now I spend much more of my time on nonprofits. I don't know the percentage, but probably 30% of more of my time. And excuse me, what I've tried to do, Michael, is really focus on a couple of different things. One is I'm involved in some larger organizations where, writing a check is what they're interested in mainly, and where they have large budgets so they can afford top talent in every element of their organization. They may have $40 million budgets, $100
Yes.
million budgets, and so they can have a world-class CEO, world-class CFO, world-class marketing person, etc. I I'm particularly interested in the smaller organizations that don't have those kind of budgets. These would be budgets, let's say, under 5 million, where they can afford maybe a great CEO, but for the other positions, they just can't get what you need otherwise. And so they really rely on board members.
Okay.
And they rely on the board members to bring skill sets that can help the organization grow. And that certainly was the case with Laguna Playhouse. When I got involved there, I happened to buy a building that they owned, and the check cleared, so they figured, maybe they can hit me for a donation. And, I got involved and became chair for about 6 years or so during, right around at the tail end of the Great Recession. And it was meaningful in causing this organization, which I think is 100 years old today, remain vibrant. And Laguna Art Museum is similar in a way, and it was, it's an organization where I'm chairman right now, and we have a terrific board of every skill set you need. We have one of the attorneys that was running one of the largest law firm in New York that's retired, and he's joined our board as governance and chairman of the governance and nominating committee. We have terrific people in finance in every segment we want. So we supplement management in a way that that really brings great value. So I've tried to focus on those kinds of things. And then another element deals with the fact that a lot of money and a lot of attention goes to sort of safety net organizations, bleeding heart, safety net kinds of places. That's where all the money goes these days. The arts are starved for funding.
Right.
And the impact of the arts means a lot to me. So I try to look at organizations that are out of the mainstream of where the funding is going that need help. So those are a couple of the things I look at.
Okay, excellent. And it's just so nice that you give back to your local community too. And it's just, I'm sure they're very thankful for that. And I'm sure the local residents right there are very thankful too for your philanthropic work. So, Joe, to wrap things up here, kind of look at it more of a big picture, what kind of goals personally, professionally, do you have for the remainder of this year, or what? Maybe not the remainder of this year, but the foreseeable future. What would you like to accomplish, or what would you like to do, either personally or professionally, to let the viewers know of who Joe really is there?
Yeah, I thought you'd ask me that question, uh, and uh, and it's sort of funny because it caused me to stop and think a little bit, in case you did. Um, so, you know, to a fault, I'm a person that always thinks about tomorrow or yesterday. I think about yesterday because I loved yesterday. I love the places I've been and the things I've done. And I reflect on those, and I enjoy reflecting on those with friends. And I'm thinking about tomorrow all the time. Today, for me, is just a transition between yesterday and tomorrow. Today doesn't matter at all. And my wife, by the way, is just the opposite. Tomorrow doesn't exist. Yesterday doesn't. She's not worried about this. She's just enjoying the day.
The moment.
So we play off one another a lot like that. And as a result, we all make our New Year's resolutions. For me, it was to transition from this lifelong period of to-do lists and dealing with tomorrow to really change my habits and my behavior and start to deal much more with today. And so my goals really this year have been to make that transition, to just really make that transition, to get more out of each day, concern myself a little less with tomorrow. A second part of it has been to learn to say no. No to certain deals, no to certain organizations, instead of piling them up and then saying, gee, I've got to start scaling back on this or this or this. It's
Right.
to be much more discriminating in to what I commit to. So my goals for this year, for example, and for the future are very simple. They really deal with behavioral change in order to really enjoy today as much as I've enjoyed, reflecting on the past and working for tomorrow. So it's very, very simple. There's no bucket list items. I mean, there's things we like to do and we'll plan on doing, but there's no, check
Right.
the box on the bucket list or things like that.
Okay. Well, Joe, I can't thank you enough. I know your time is valuable, and just rehashing what you just said, living for the moment and today, and looking at everything and your successful career. It really means a lot coming on the show. It means a lot that we just closed that deal together. Thank you for the business. We look forward to working with you on future deals as well. And I know we'll be successful together and working as a team, as a true professional in the industry. So thank you. And I hope you have a great day. And hopefully the viewers enjoy this episode, because it was very special from a true, very successful legend in the industry for real estate. So please take the words to heart, and hopefully you can use it in your life or business. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Good. Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Also, I want to thank Lance Capel, who has been our production manager since the start of the show, who helped me put this together since day one. And without him, none of this would be happening. He's very professional. Highly recommend him to work with you if you are looking to do a podcast or any kind of event. His team is the best in the biz. So definitely give them a shout if needed. Also, my team is very important to recognize. I know I've talked about them before on different episodes, but Daisy, Zach, Lindsay, Hank, and Nick, all of you help me and our clients exponentially day in and day out. And so without you, there wouldn't be a team here as successful as we've been over the last 23 years. So much appreciated.